Well, welcome everyone. Wonderful to have many of you joining and rejoining from prior webinar series. It's good to have you on the call today. And I want to speak on behalf of the Partners Worldwide team. We welcome you to this event. I'm grateful to have you here and representing so many people from different organizations and different countries, both within Southeast Asia and now East Africa. Grace and Jane, welcome. Today's session will be on the business resiliency mindset, and I know that's a topic that's been floating around. I keep seeing different webinars and different articles all about resiliency, but I think we can dig deeper into that and how that relates to general business operations with our guest today. And so I want to point out one thing regarding, I can click to the next slide, let me try in a moment. There we go. So the Leadership and Business Resiliency Series has been going on for a couple weeks now, and we're evaluating how to wrap that up probably within the next few weeks, but then continue it in different ways. So glad to have you joining one of our last confirmed sessions for the time being. So stay tuned for future sessions as we announce them in coming months. But the purpose of this series is really to equip small business owners, entrepreneurs, and organizational leaders to build this resiliency in response to the impacts of COVID-19 in both Southeast Asia and beyond. So we're in a lot of unpredictable situations. As many of us know, some of us are still on lockdown or different levels of quarantine. Other countries have not yet necessarily experienced such significant impact of COVID on their economy or their businesses. So we're all trying to adapt almost daily to this new normal. And we'll be walking through that a bit more as to what that looks like in tangible business operations with our guest today. So I'd like to point out just three quick things. For those of you that already do have your camera on, we would love to have you keep that video on. We would love for this to be an engaging dialogue, especially with a relatively small group, just about 20 to 30 people today. And we'll actually have the opportunity to open it up more in our question and response time later. One other thing is that we'll put up the link on the chat box to something called Slido. Some of you have done this in weeks past, but you'll actually be able to enter your question. And then if you find someone else that's entered a very similar question, you can just basically vote for their question or endorse it in a way that it bumps that question up to the top. And then in our question and response time, we'll make sure that those questions are prioritized. But we would also, again, with a small group, be willing to have you, if you'd like to go on a microphone, you can ask the question yourself. So we'll be sure to facilitate that later and have more of an open dialogue. The second thing is that we are recording this session. So if you do have any concerns about showing your face or your name, you can go ahead and turn your video off. Another thing that you can do is to edit your name just so it's first name or a nickname if that's what you prefer to be shared more broadly, because we are trying to share these videos with others that were unable to attend. And then lastly, as I said, you can use the chat box link, which Jimmy will send shortly, to ask questions during the presentation as they come to mind, and then your comments or insights as we proceed. So with that said, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and walk you through the purpose of today's discussion. So resiliency, as I said, has been a very hot term floating around these days. So in fact, day after day, I come across another article or an opinion piece or video or another webinar invitation. That's actually originally where I got this idea. Why don't we do our own webinar series, informing me on this new concept of quote unquote resiliency. So it may mean a lot of things to a lot of different people. But in reality, when rubber hits the road, we are trying to examine what resiliency means for entrepreneurs and business people in order to survive and even help rebuild their business and thrive moving forward into the future. So COVID-19 has put a lot of parts of the world on halt and upheaving in many ways the livelihoods and jobs of so many people. So things keep changing every day. Offices and workplaces are being remodeled, meaning their skeletal staff model or come in one day a week, that sort of thing. But businesses have also had to adapt rapidly in the ways that they're serving their customers more efficiently. And this has actually affected businesses both big and small. So a lot of our audience here is from the small business sector, but I know we have other people from investment or larger corporations attending as well. But the key thing that I think we're all aware of is that the world is changing, and we need to build up this resiliency mindset in order to run this marathon ahead of us. So in some ways, I was just thinking about this because I'm trying to get back into running myself. And it almost feels like we're about 5 kilometers into this marathon. You know, you hit the 5K mark and you're like, okay, I'm in the rhythm. We picked up the pace. I'm feeling comfortable. My heart rate is at the right level, but we still have about 35 kilometers to go. So today we're digging deeper into those questions. What is the resiliency mindset? And more importantly, what are some of these key tangible ways that we can develop our own resiliency in the business sector and apply it to the way that we run the business, both now and in this challenging time moving forward? So joining us is our guest, Joseph C., who I'm excited to introduce to the Partners Worldwide Network. Joseph serves as the CEO of Agape Connecting People, a company offering business process outsourcing and human resources solutions. What's more exciting about this business and very inspirational is that it's actually a company based and operating a portion of its operations in the Shanji prison complex in Singapore. And in total, it employs over 500 people who are either presently or previously incarcerated men and women. I like the term returning citizens, with the vision that through dignified work, people can rebuild lives and reconcile families. Joseph holds over 20 years of leadership experience in both sales and operations, customer acquisition and retention, and frontline and back-end support functions, resource utilization, quality assurance, and training. And he'll elaborate on some of those more tangible ways that those skills can be applied in the small business sector. And he also has a passion for transforming workforces and an acumen in analyzing needs and creating unique solutions to achieve desired results. So with that said, Joseph, welcome to the session.
Thank you.
I think we'll start with a tough question. For you, what would be the resiliency mindset from your perspective? And then we'll allow you to tell us more about the company.
Resiliency, anyway, welcome everyone. Thank you, Jackie, Jimmy, and all for inviting me into this session. Resiliency mindset, I think, is basically an attitude of mind. And this is a very difficult attitude of mind because, pardon me, because at the core of everything, we are human. And often we look at matters, what we see, what we feel, what we think, what we say. All these get affected by simply how we feel, because we are not servers, we are not machines. And I think the difficulty is translating all this to say, how can I respond rather than have knee-jerk reaction? And often, even for myself, especially when I'm not prepared, I tend to react. But I think there is this need for us to have that discipline to take a step back and say, how can I respond better, even in a situation like this? And that the way you respond is also important in terms of how you recover back. And something that it takes practice. You need to fail many times and you just get better.
Great.
That's my short answer.
That's a good place to start. It's a challenging topic for sure. Well, why don't you go ahead and walk us through just a couple, 2 or 3 minutes on the background of the company. And I think that will give us a good context for how you're operating this business, especially in challenging times. So yeah, take us away on Agape.
Okay. All right. Agape Connecting People is a social enterprise. At the core of it, we try to lift up people from the poverty line, the disadvantaged people. So this word, transforming lives and enriching stakeholder, is very dear to me. For us, our mission is really to provide equal reskilling as well as employment opportunities for the community. And we believe that's the way to transform in a sustainable way. In short, is really teaching them how to fish rather than giving them the fish. If I can move on to the next slide. We are a contact center business, and for us, we provide BPO solutions We are a provider, as well as HR solutions. And the special group of people that we work with, often shunned by society. These are people serving time in prison right now as we speak. We have two contact centers in Changi Prison, one in a male, one in a female. They contribute to about 200 seats. We hire about 100 over people inside there right now. We also have a city office where inmates who finish their term comes out to the city office. They are already trained in prison. They come out, we provide them the work. They work alongside the physically challenged as well as single mothers. At this point, this is our definition of the disadvantage. Our whole purpose here is to say, how can I use work to restore lives? The next slide, please. So the manner in which we do it is a very value-based kind of environment that we set for them. We believe that having a right environment will help them transform. And when we look at each of these individuals, it's probably due to a lack of the correct environment, lack of correct values that got them to where they are, especially those serving time in prison. So we teach them values in the acronym of ASPIRE, because having hope is very important. That adds up to accountability, selflessness, professionalism, integrity, respect, and excellence. For people who have done crime because of whatever circumstances, it is always easy. It is always to do what is easy. But what we are reframing them into is integrity is doing what is right. And we are also teaching them, sharing in them values. Let's be less self-centered, but be more other-centered. And only when you do that can you experience joy. So we say, one of the ways to rise is by lifting other people. And we hope when they come out, that's the same thing, the same ethos that they can also experience. Accountability is critical for us because that's the fundamental of building trust in a relationship, which we will speak a bit more later. In the next slide, if I may. So this is fundamentally what we do, business process outsourcing. We have about 10 over clients from various industries. We provide contact center services, solutions over the phone, emails, live chat, and more emails and live chat recently because of what has happened, and everyone is embracing this whole e-commerce online store, and that has kind of got us busy, and we continue to train our people on that area. Human resource solutions, we also provide trained resources in clients' premises. We are happy to say that one of the biggest hotel in Singapore, you can see it in the skyline, is one of our partners in which we place our ex-offenders, train ex-offenders into their premises. And we want to do more of that because we believe that we have the environment to acclimatize these people to become good contributing civilians. And what we are also starting to do is to do more of this whole digital transformation, because the way businesses are moving, that whole platform, the approach, we just want to be there to make sure that we continue to be relevant and also use data-driven insights to make decisions. And this becomes very critical for us. Next slide, please. We have impacted close to about 500, and I think the last count we had last week was about 540 lives. We continue to soldier on. Cumulatively, we hope to hit that milestone of 1,000 lives by 2022. When Anil David, the founder of this company, started this vision, and I was sharing with Jackie that the first contact center seat actually happened in his study room. With a lot of grit, patience, resilience, and a vision to say that we have very street smart people in prison. How can we, through proper environment, reframe them, repurpose them to be good contributing citizens of society? You will notice that in the chart, there is an introduction of the women's prison. Females, I think we started that in 2019 because we opened the contact center in the women's prison on this very special day, which is the 8th of March. I wonder how many of you know what does 8th of March stands for. It is actually the International Women's Day. And that's the day where we open to say that while you may be locked up in this place, but you are important to us. And they were so touched. Sorry, if I could have the next slide, Jackie. These are the things that we did during COVID-19. We realized that Agape connecting people can move towards from connecting to collaboration. We work with even other social enterprises like Spick and Span on to lead generate for them because they provide sanitization service. And especially so in COVID-19, everyone is trying to say, how can I keep the place clean? We also partner the government ministries to launch the National Care Hotline, where we provide 24/7 emotional support, partnering mental health experts for those who are suffering from this COVID-19, which we will talk more later in the presentation. The next slide, please. And I think for us, it is not just about ourselves. We also took the opportunity to help the migrant community. I think we distributed close to almost 100,000 meal packs to them because I think some of them were caught in a situation where they couldn't go back. They had to stop work, and there were also old folks home that reached out to us, and we provided care packs, the Villa Francis Nursing Home, and we felt so good giving back to the community because I think everybody deserves a place in this society and no one should be forgotten. Thank you so much. I think this more or less comes to the end of my presentation. The next slide should be about the, yeah, okay.
Contact info.
Trying to remember what I have in the deck of slides.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people will want to
Okay,
connect
I hope this gives you
today,
yeah.
Well, let me dig into questions. Thank you so much for sharing. I mean, it's a fascinating business model that you have, and especially when you're describing how in standard, I mean, this is all over the world. There's typically a stigma of people coming out of prison or returning citizens, possibly even in their own immediate family. People feel they can't be trusted, or friends, it takes time to rebuild that relationship. And here you are in a very innovative way, now partnering with the government, and it's people in prison who are actually serving people going through the crisis of COVID, counseling them through this situation. So how do you see resiliency in that situation? I mean, what did it take specifically for you as a business to be resilient enough to shift into some of these new market opportunities as a business model?
I think as a business, it is important that we know who are the stakeholders. The stakeholders, there are a few stakeholders. One is your own staff. Two is your customers. And three is the environment. The environment has been shifting so much. You know, the ground that we are standing on has been moving, and it has moved faster with COVID-19. Everyone is struggling to define what is the norm. I think what is fundamental and what will not change is about this value proposition that each group can bring to the table. And for example, if someone is having a headache, what is that aspirin or that Panadol that I can solve by being relevant, by delivering value? And this is not something when COVID-19 happened and you start have that conversation. This is a conversation that you need to have. Keep those close to your heart, understand the ground so that you will be able to even fish out ideas. Sometimes in Agape, one of the best ideas are those from the ground up, not necessarily from the management. And we love those ideas because when you have ground up ideas, you have this thing called the pride and joy to say, hey boss, this was my idea. I want to make this successful, rather than the boss say, or the leader say, we're going to do this. This is your KPI, things like that. And we realize a lot of this ground up builds a lot of self-confidence, builds dignity. And that's one of the things. The other thing is also about being able to deliver. The whole quality framework that we put to our client, the whole value proposition, because at the heart of all these stakeholders, there is one thing that is so critical. It's called the relationship. And how your relationship is going to flourish, is going to change, is dependent on how well you build trust. And trust is something that is so tough to build, so hard to build, and so easy to spoil. And we guard it like a treasure. And for the people inside prison, while they might have compromised on those in the past because of wrong environment, we tell them, let's start all over again. Even until today, uh, when I partner Anil, I don't really ask him, Anil, why did you come into prison for? I've never asked him that question because those are no longer important to me. But it is about the now. What can you do now to shape the future? You were here because you did something in the past that brought you here. And now it's about taking opportunities to move and to shape what's in the future for you. And we do this day in, day out with them, that whole reframing of an environment that encourages, an environment that doesn't judge. And for people that we are working with, let's be honest, the environment today is one that is not forgiving, one where it finger points, one where people take credit for other people's work, one where we look at individuals and say, how much can I leverage on you? How much value do you bring to me? How can I rise? How can my pride become bigger? But I don't think we're in this space.
Yeah, that's a really interesting angle of the story that I hadn't really thought about before. But I mean, in so many ways, it's critical to be trusting the capacity of your employees and starting at that baseline. You know, you are where you are right now, but where can we go together moving forward? But I think the second component, as what many people would probably consider a social impact enterprise or a social enterprise, sometimes there's that charity mentality of people saying, oh, I'm just going to buy your product because I believe in your vision, or I believe in what you're doing with people in prison right now, giving people a second chance. I believe in that. But you're saying, you know, a lot of customers may come to you, like that massive hotel in Singapore that's contracting with you, and say, hey, we believe in your vision, but if you don't deliver on the product or you don't fulfill our expectations, we're just going to have to cut the contract. So, I mean, how has that mindset of being high quality at a commercial level, how has that mindset influenced the way that you manage the business on a day-to-day basis?
First, we shape the minds of the team, the agents, the inmates. When they come into, so as we are speaking right now, there are inmates in the women's prison. They leave their cells every morning. They walk into a workshop, which is a contact center. And that's where they are trained to provide customer service skills, customer service and sales, the whole genre of it. Voice, as in call center, emails, live chats, and they are doing this. We often tell them that it is important to know why you're stepping into this place. And often we find that the thing that works best is you anchor it on somebody. Some of them are doing it to show their family that I know this is my second time, third time in prison. If I'm going to tell you that this is my last time, you're probably going to say, the family who visits them is probably going to say, yeah, okay, I believe you, you know. But I think using work, using action to show that you are picking up the skills, you're earning an allowance, and some of them are even remitting some of this money back into their family. The amount may not be big, but the meaning and the significance is huge, because it is through work, through action, that you are demonstrating to your family that now, whatever I'm doing, there is a reason for you to have this thing called hope. And when hope doesn't materialize, it becomes disappointment. And the families have gone through that so many times. With work, they have now realized that I am given this chance and I want to do this well. So for a person like myself who comes from the corporate space, looking at the individuals, I think they are definitely more motivated, and they have a point to prove to their family, to the public, to say that I am commercial ready, I am worth it, and I'm not going to disappoint my family again. And I think as a social enterprise, we also position ourselves such that the relationship, the most important thing is trust. And when you say trust, the commercial significance of it is I will deliver. I will deliver. And if you cannot deliver, don't talk about second chances. They will not give you the next chance. And it's important that we also realize that we need to prepare this group of people and not say we are a charity to say, it's okay, don't worry. We're going to say that we love you. That's why we set up this environment. And we're going to make sure that the environment in the prison, the contact center, is as real as what it is in the real world. Because what we do not want them is to step out of prison, going into a reality where, hey, it is different from where I thought it was. And we say that sometimes we scold you because we love you. And they understand our intention. And because of that, trust is built. But of course, in anything, we do it respectfully because those are the same values that we want them to embrace. So we are very careful how we talk to them. Anil and myself, when we go into the women's prison, we establish ourselves as your father. I'm already 50 this year, and we say that I'm your father. So to the ladies, we say, don't try to be funny with us. Okay, I'm your dad. Okay, it sounds a bit wrong, but it sets the tone of the relationship to say that because you are my daughter, adopted daughter, I will love you. If I need to scold you, I will, because I don't want you to fall again when you leave the prison. And and that and that relationship, that professional relationship, has worked to us because each of them, as much as they want to prove that they are worth it, we always tell them honestly, there's nothing to prove, but everything to improve. Because it's not about who has more, but it is what can you do? What can you do to rise? What can you do to lift up the other people? And these are values that they probably didn't experience in their lifetime or in the family environment where things are just so wrong because of circumstances. We have ladies who were probably sexually abused, physically abused, mentally abused, trying to come out of that. And we say, focus on yourself. Don't have to depend on your partner. Stop the abuse. Stand up. You are worth it. You have, it's already inside you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a great transition to one of the other key tangible ways that resiliency can be applied in the business world. It's not just you hierarchically leading, and this is, making sure that we're not misinterpreting the father-daughter relationship in any way. It's not hierarchical. It's this tough love, believing in the future of this person. So I know one of your passions from your own career background is building up workforces and seeing the potential in people. So how do you actually grow leadership, and why is that important in order that a business be more resilient? How do you grow leaders out of people that you're working with?
I think the first important thing is we need to walk the talk. And when we say we walk the talk, when I have a mission vision statement, it is not there because I need to cover the wall. I need it because it kind of anchor us and core values. That's the way, the approach we're gonna take. And Anil, myself, we have discussed this many times, and we're not gonna be here forever. But we need to build a system, a process where the people can grow up to become leaders themselves. Now, if I want to impact 1,000 people, 2,000 people, 3,000 people, no way and are we going to say it is going to be dependent on this core team? But the question here is, how can I build enough leaders so that I can replicate this? I can give you one example. Let's call this person, okay, Jimmy, I'm going to use your name. Okay, let's call this person Jimmy. At the age of 17, he has been in and out of prisons all the way until 30 years old for drug trafficking, for rioting, and everything else. Family gave up on him. And I think he's a smart kid. And I think through counseling, he started to study. He was in the men's prison when the contact center was there. He worked, brilliant guy. We encouraged him to study. just last week, and now he's out in my city office working because he already has the skill. He was accepted into the local university, Singapore University of Social Science. And I asked him, "What are you taking up?" He said, "I'm doing social work." And I was pleasantly surprised because it meant a lot to me. Um, he realized that he saw what we were doing, and he knew that the only way to grow is to join them and to impact more lives. And these are the kind of leaders that we want to do. I have many other examples of people who have gone through our process, experienced the unconditional love. That's what agape means. Unconditional love, we accept them unconditionally, but the help is conditional because we cannot just go on because resources are finite. So there are rules that we build. The one thing that we always tell them is we will not judge you except for one thing, which is your attitude. Because the attitude of mind is so critical, whether you're inside the prison, outside of prison. And I think sometimes when I look at it, we are just on the different side of the fence. So I think it is so important to have that transition and that continuity. Else, we cannot claim to be a company that wants to build sustainable community impact. Because sustainability here is not about financial sustainability. It is also about continuity, whether in good times and bad times. Also having that good business continuity plan to make sure that your business can continue to function safely in this world where it's so chaotic and everyone is trying to define what is the new normal.
Yeah, and I think you and I had both Googled the definition of resiliency.
Yeah, yeah.
Just to we're confessing that to everyone here. We're like, what does resiliency actually mean? And it doesn't even necessarily mean, how to survive the present. It actually means rebuilding, figuring out how to rebuild in order that you can actually move forward. So you've shared before that, and this aligns with what you just said, as leaders and in believing in other people, you've had to unlearn and relearn a lot of things. So can you share how leaders, in order to be resilient, need to unlearn and relearn, and some specific examples for small businesses?
Sure. I think we need to start with a position, especially for leaders and business owners, to say that you need to be seen as unfallible. You need to be seen as you know everything. You need to be seen that he's the boss. But I think history and even learning from many companies, it is always about embracing talent and also recognizing that you may not need to know everything, but it doesn't stop you from learning. We hire people who know more than us. I am not a very finance person. I hired Jonathan, who takes care of all the finances and all the HR for us, and I learn from him every day. Um, the critical thing is I came from a contact center background that is for 20 years. I knew that if I join Agape and I'm going to say, look, I have that experience, just do what I tell you, we will be successful. I think we would have failed miserably because the whole motivation, the whole setup, and the whole environment is so different. In the corporate space, you have things like your KPIs and everything else. You say, let's do it, move it, else hire, fire, because those are the secular values in the world. But over here, it is about restoration. A lot of times in the corporate space, people listen because they want to respond. I think it is difficult to listen because you want to understand. And unless you understand, then only can you understand what's in it for each of their stakeholders. And these are things that you need to empty your cup and say that I need to learn the mindset of the person in prison. Why are they in that position? What will take, what motivates them? And it's the same marketing policies of what's in it for me. And each of them are very different. And I had gone through so much, and Anil is a great teacher because he has done time in prison. And he shares with me in the car rides, in our coffee sessions. We love our teh tarik. And he shares with me the things that goes behind each of these ex-offender, the inmate, what motivates them. And we realize that the power of recognition is such an understated action that perhaps leaders are not doing enough today. And also recognizing that ground up ideas, ground up leadership is a very good way of having this whole collective leadership. I'm just a servant to them. I'll get things done. And I think everyone knows this whole thing about servant leadership. While Mason appointed me as the CEO of Agape, but honestly speaking, I'm just an instrument of the maker. And the real CEO is up there. Some people call him God, some people call him the maker. And as much as a person like myself, you can plan all you want, but ultimately, he has shown us so many times he decides. Sometimes there are deals that we don't get, and we sometimes naturally get disappointed because we cannot impact this number of lives. Maybe because we were not ready. And there are a lot of lessons. Um, and and I'm not shy to tell you that we pray on every Friday, Anil, myself, Jonathan, and every Friday morning at 9 o'clock we pray, sitting together and say, I lift up everything to him, and he speaks to us. So the real CEO speaks to us in ways that we sometimes can't imagine.
Yes. That's actually a really good, obviously a mentality to have. But when it comes down to how to make key business decisions, especially if you're coming from that viewpoint, how do you complement that with, especially with this new normal, finding ways to pivot or finding the next opportunity as your company has done? So for example, could you walk us through a little bit of how you went through this new partnership with the Singaporean government and how you first of all identified that? What were the steps to get there? What kind of relationship or trust building was necessary in order to, again, not just survive under your current model, but also move forward with different markets?
Okay, I think businesses today have to move from just connecting, making friends to collaboration. And it's not easy because collaboration means there is some win-win opportunity for us to partner together to do something that can make a difference for somebody else. So recognizing who is that customer is important. And I think it's also important that you have patience. Some of the customers that we work with, some took 2.5 years before I think this is a very long courtship. But we continue to build friends, network, be on the ground, understand their pains. Every stakeholder and people love to talk about their pains. And we draw all this out from them. And we realize that you cannot be everything to everyone, and you cannot do everything. And you need that partnership model to partner so that it comes out win-win. I also have clients where I have 2 different clients, and we said, why don't we leverage on each other's customer base in order to grow, in order to put up a bigger value proposition, and we facilitated that. And also in this world where looking at the new normal, and in the case of the National Care Hotline, it took us 10 days to set up a hotline, which is a record for us because it normally takes about 2 to 3 months. But we understood what it meant for the public. Since we started on 10th of April, we have handled about 18,000 calls, and this goes 24/7. And we were counting that day, it is equivalent to 1,500 hours, and we just keep going on. I think people are hurting and suffering out there because of this whole COVID-19, not just in Singapore, everywhere. Spouses being locked up in the same place. Now you suddenly have family time because they say, I don't have work-life balance. Now suddenly you put a husband and wife together. Then you realize that maybe that's not what I need. So there are a lot of learnings coming out from it, and children having home-based learning and stuff like that. I think the important thing here is about speed, going in fast. And sometimes you don't need to be 100% sure. As long as it's about 75, 80%, just go in. But when you go in and it is something that is not right, you fail fast, you learn, because perhaps the assumptions were wrong. So it has to be an organization that keeps learning, that doesn't finger point when things goes wrong, because the lessons of the failure is much more important sometimes than the success. Because in success, you may not learn as much. And these are things, takeaways that I have. Not every deal that we pitched through became successful, but we became better as we go through each of these deals. Not because of Anil, not because of myself, but the whole collective team putting in together, contributing. I hope I answered your question.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's the biggest thing that everyone needs to learn, myself included. You learn the most when you make mistakes or come through conflicts and work on how to resolve it, because COVID-19 may be the present, but there may be future things.
Yeah. And there's one more thing. Don't be afraid to say sorry. Don't be afraid to apologize, because we are not members of Avengers. We bound to make mistakes. And you get more respect saying sorry than trying to justify why you are more right. And as a leader, sometimes be humble. And I think that's very important, because that's the kind of culture that you're setting for the whole team.
Yeah. Builds relationships, builds trust, and that humility, even if it's cross-cultural, even if it goes against our typical mentality as sinful humans, that is the pathway we need to go on. So, well, thank you so much for sharing, Joseph. I'm actually going to transition now. I know there's a number of questions already coming in on Slido, but Jimmy, why don't you go ahead and start facilitating the next round of questions
coming
from our audience.
Yep, thank you, Jackie. Thank you, Joseph. I mean, what you shared is really inspiring, and I know there's a lot of people that is listening to you now are curious more about what you are doing. So here's the first questions that are coming in. Could you explain more how you cooperate with the prison? How are the inmates selected, and how do they work from prison?
Okay. So there are a few questions there. Okay, let me try to remember them. Okay, so basically in the prison outfit in Changi right now, there are about 10,000 inmates at any one time. Singapore laws are rather strict. And what we do have is there are workshops in every of the institutions. In those workshops, you have things like some will be involved in laundry, some involved in food making, cake making, and for us, we are a contact center. We work through a cooperative arm of the prisons, which is the yellow ribbon. They used to call themselves SCORE. I am a tenant in that workshop. They lease that space to me for me to employ, train, and give work to the inmates, because they recognize that work is one of the most powerful rehabilitation, restart, renew efforts. And thankfully, because that whole process was already there, we could just go in there and partner the prisons for that. And coming to the question on how we select them, we make them go through, okay, it starts by the inmates saying that they put up their hand to say, I want to work. So it is not something that they have no choice. There are people who say, you know what, I do not want to work. I just want to sit there and be embroiled in that whole misery thing. Others, they say, I want to work because there's this thing called trying to kill time, which is very painful because time always works against them. So they put out their hand, and the prison officers will then interview them, because safety is very important in the workshop. For us, we interview to make sure that they can speak, because this is a contact center role. There are people that come to us that says, you know what, Joseph, I can speak, but I do not know the computers. I say, don't worry. This is something that you can learn. And we have groomed a lot of these people, and they are now very digitally savvy. So they are also paid in allowance because that's part of the whole commercial arrangement. And what we are also moving towards is also trying to make Agape a training center where we can give them certified skills. So when they leave the place, they can start on a higher salary. It is because of salaries, because of money matters that sometimes get themselves into trouble, trying to do 2, 3 jobs at one time, take on like job, and then probably end up taking drugs, pushing drugs and things like that. So when they do that contact center piece, they know they come out with a good starting pay. They only just need to focus on that job. Yeah. So that relationship with SCORE and Yellow Ribbon has been going on for a good 5 to 6 years now. And I think what they liked about our work is because we are teaching them communication skills. Things like, how do you communicate effectively? How do you ask questions? How do you listen? And it's because of the lack of all this that probably got them into trouble in their personal lives, in their professional lives, and perhaps a lack of opportunity as well. So these are life skills that we are teaching them. When you talk to customers, you need to be patient, and some overcome their anger management issues. So it's fantastic. And if I may share, and this example is something that I like to use. We had a inmate that didn't have visits from the family for a long time, and and when when we encouraged the inmate to write, he said, "No, I'm not going to write because there's not going to be any response from my family." So we told him to write about what he did, and he wrote that, "Dear son, I know you're in secondary school. You should take this." The client allows me to say that you should take this StarHub broadband plan because it has this, that, and it's better than our competitors. The son finally wrote back and asked this question: "How did you know?" That was the start of reconciliation because now the family is visiting him because they now realize that he's working, sending back money, learning up a new skill. Reason for me to place a hope. Sorry, I'm answering more than I should.
It's fine. We want to listen more to your story.
Yeah.
And so how do they work from the prison? I mean, like from what you shared, I mean, they go through for training first, isn't it right? So is there anyone that has not
they
passed?
go for training and we...
Yeah. So is there anyone that has not passed the
some
training, and then what do they do if they don't pass the training?
Okay, often most of them do pass the training because when we select, it means that I have responsibility over that life and we will make it happen. You don't pass the first test, you will pass the second test. And we will keep encouraging you. Not to say that if you don't pass anymore, I'm going to kick you out of this place. No, we don't do that. We say that it's inside you, draw it out. We believe in you. And this encouragement helps. And often we get the client involved. The clients, after all that training, the clients will be the one doing the test for them so that they become party of putting people onto the floor. So it's just like if I am the driving center today and I'm certifying people for a driving license, we get a client involved so that we are party in all this to say that we are responsible for this person. And this has really helped. And they like it because they like to learn all that thing. And I think most importantly, they also enjoy the aircon because contact center is air conditioned in prison. Okay. And we made it that way because my servers are there. So, but they are not here because of the aircon. They are here because of the skills. And we often joke, you are here because of the aircon, right? They say, no, we are not here because I'm learning something. I get to speak to somebody. And when I'm in the contact center, time flies. When I'm in the cell, they get stuck in the cell 23 hours a day if they are not working for us.
Okay. It's very interesting when you say that you set up the contact center to be air conditioned. But the question is that training room or the contact center already exist in the prison in the first place? Or does your company fund and organize that contact center?
We have to set it up. It's an empty space. You picture a basketball court, which is about 5,000 square feet. That's the size of the contact center. And you imagine there are about 100 seats inside the place. We have to repurpose the empty workshop into a contact center that we run on technology that is secure, because we are dealing with customers' data, and we have to make sure that the pipe is all secured and nothing can penetrate this. We work alongside our local the IT authorities, IMDA, as well as the prison IT department. So there's collaboration to make sure that they don't have access to internet. They cannot just make a phone call out to their family. So these are the rules that are built in, and we have the technology to make sure that that doesn't happen, or that doesn't compromise the trust that the prison authorities have with Agape. And until today, we are still doing that to make sure that that doesn't happen.
Wow, that's
not easy.
Yeah, it's a lot of work.
This is a brainchild of Anil David. Wonderful. Yeah.
Thank you for answering that, Joseph. This next coming question is, with BPOs facing an uncertain post-pandemic future, what could be your alternative livelihood for Agape and other countries where BPOs are a big industry? So in the same way, saying that, describe Agape's new normal. Are you already there?
Okay, in fact, even with or without this pandemic, the role of the call center has been changing. And I think what has come out very clearly, and even at an accelerated now because of COVID-19, is the fact that people are going towards e-commerce. In the space of e-commerce, and even shops today, people don't really buy things from the shop. They go to the physical shop, they see something they like, they go online store and buy. I think this is a very typical behavior in Singapore, and I'm sure all over the world. But what has come out is the need for an agent to be able to handle emails, able to handle live chat, because there is questions that people doing online store will ask. It's something that is within our competency. In the initial days of Agape, they tend to be more very calls centric, but we are seeing a good mix of emails, live chats, and also things like AI, which we are going to embark in next year, RPA, and using chatbots to be the first level of the FAQs that customers can answer, and train up the agents to handle the more difficult, complex customer interaction that needs problem solving that the machine cannot handle. And this is also the path that we are taking. Agape is also moving towards to be a approved training organization where we can give certified skills. Some of our agents who used to be ex-offenders, in Singapore, what you call this certified trainers. So this becomes a new life skill that they are also going towards. And we are also looking across within Singapore, and for Agape, can I use IT as a service? Because we have in-house developers can develop CRMs, apps. Can I place more people into the client's premise, HR as a service, and even things like training as a service? So we are evolving, and we just want to evolve such that contact center just happen to be one of the things that we are doing just to keep up with the times.
Wow, that's great. Well, there's more questions, but I'm afraid that we are running out of time now. So I have to give back to Jackie now. Jackie, please take over.
All right. Well, I'm just going to put up one quick slide, and then Joseph, I'm going to put you on the spot with a final question before we say thank you. So I just want everyone to know that we have another session starting next week. Next week, Thursday, we're actually scheduled to meet with Tommy Tiptajaya, based in Jakarta, Indonesia. And he's going to be speaking on entrepreneurship and innovation. He runs a company called Green Hope, employing about 65 people, and they're producing alternative plastic. So, and also trying to be competitive on the market, even though it's such a new type of product line, competing against very cheap plastics. So he's also been adapting to new market opportunities, especially within COVID. And I was prepping with him earlier this week, and he's very excited to come and share his findings with the rest of the group next week. So stay tuned. We're going to be sending out the invitations by email and also by social media. So many of you are already on the email list, so you'll be receiving that email invitation probably by Friday this week, so tomorrow. So stay tuned and hope that you can join us. So final question for Joseph. This is going to be the toughest
What I
one.
have for lunch? No.
Can I take you out for coffee next time we're together?
Okay.
All right.
Okay,
So final
sure.
question. You have about 1 minute to answer this. So you've said that value proposition is so important, and really for customers, it's recognizing those clues as to how you can be the best aspirin to alleviate their pain. So with that in mind, what is the next step? How are you going to be alleviating the pains through Agape for your clients moving forward? What's your dream for this coming year?
My dream for this coming year is to continue to stay profitable, although it's a challenge, but I know we will get there. What we are also seeing, of course, I hope to impact 1,000 by 2022. Some of those strategies that we have for 2020 would include monetizing new capabilities, making sure that we are secure, as well as starting the whole training outfit that we wanted to do for a while. Because if I can train them, there's a good chance I can repurpose them to be digitally ready, to have that personal branding, financial literacy, and they are market ready. There's this thing called employment and employability. We need to get them ready for it, because they are competing in a world that's really changing so fast. And before I get cut off, I also want to take this opportunity to thank Mason, Dr. Chan, Inlock, all from Garden Impact, I think, for placing your trust in me. And it has been such a fruitful journey. Yes, Jackie.
Well, that's an amazing dream. I really look forward to hearing how not just 1,000 people, but you said before 4,000 people, their families can be impacted by these 1,000 jobs. So we'll be cheering you on as you go.
Yeah, and we hope to even train spouses of inmates so that the family can be more sustainable. And hopefully going into youth at risk, how we can lift the whole family, because I think that's the most important building block of society, the family.
Wonderful. Well, thank you everyone for participating. Just join me in thanking Joseph. You can turn your video on if you'd like, unmute yourselves. I also want to remind everyone to go ahead and give your feedback on the link that Jimmy just shared on the chat box. But again, join me in thanking Joseph. We hope to hear more from you in the future and to stay in touch.
Yeah, I wish we had more time. Yeah.
I do too.
Yeah.
Thank you everyone for joining.
Thank you.
Have a great evening.
Thank you.